What's up, everybody? I am your host, an emotionalist serial killer that lives in a sewer and has an AARP membership. And that is my co-host, a former gun-toting granny who traded her shotgun in for a suburban life baking cookies. And welcome to the Grindhouse Syndicate, where apparently we weren't done with Halloween just quite yet. We have one more Michael Myers film to talk about that, unfortunately, doesn't have a frantic Dr. Loomis willing to kill teenagers and put others in danger in order to stop his nemesis. So, normally we talk about movies that people love and really enjoy, but today is a little different because on this episode of Terror or Error, we are going to talk about a movie that is not well regarded by most of the horror community. So this week, we decided to purge all of our previous opinions and feelings about this film and watch it with a blank slate in order to ask the question, is it really that bad or did it just catch a bad rap? Which I think is important because this movie kind of sunk a whole entire trilogy, the whole Blumhouse trilogy. So today we are going to be talking about David Gordon Green's train wreck of a finale, Halloween Ends from 2022. So we talked a little bit about this. I think it was the Patreon after show. Could have been the Halloween 2 episode. I can't remember, but some of the listeners and Jordan have spoken, and we are going to do this movie and go and do it with a clean slate. And most importantly, look for the good and the bad in this film in order to answer the question, did our emotions and memory fail us and this is like really a terror? Or were we right from the beginning and this is totally an error?
Yeah, I think it was the after show for Halloween 2, but we briefly got on the subject of this movie, and I remember saying, I don't know, I need to go back and watch that one because, having such high
Yeah.
hopes and then watching it and being let down, it was just fucking completely awful. And I have occasionally, not very often, but occasionally seen people kind of take up for it. So I'm like, okay, well, at some point we need to go back and watch this one again. So whenever you mentioned it was kind of my pick coming up on the week and we were going to the not deep dive episode,
Yeah.
but it being so close to Halloween still, I really wanted to do something with Halloween. And a light bulb went off. I was like, "Holy shit, we were just talking about this. What better of a fucking time than now to go through and talk about whether this movie was as bad as we remember it being?"
Yeah, I mean, I remember saying that maybe it was too soon, but when I started researching this movie, I was like, damn, this came out in 2022. It's damn near 2026, so it's been some time. We have
It
not watched it
it was so
since
traumatic.
it came out up until this point.
It was so traumatic, it feels like it was yesterday. It
Yeah.
was like, like super bad breakup. I won't even say super bad breakup. It was like a divorce with 10 kids involved. It hurt.
Yeah, my personal feelings on this was awful. It had so much wrong with it. I actually wrote down my main issues that I remember before I did this rewatch this week, just so I can compare my initial complaints with my thoughts after the rewatch. My 3 big things that I remember was, like, Michael has hardly any screen time, and he gets beat up by this, like, fucking young dude. The story seems less about Michael killing people and more about Haddonfield and this love story, and the last thing is, like, Laurie's character has completely changed from the other 2 films. Those are my main issues that I remember, and I guess we will see if any of those opinions have changed.
Hmm. That probably a good idea. A lot of the tear or air episodes that we've talked about getting into sometimes are movies that we already have, like, a better opinion than the
We've seen
masses
multiple
on.
times, yeah.
Yeah, this one is one that we really have to kinda wipe the slate clean and watch it with a open view on it,
Yeah.
much different than the first time we watched it, and to write down the things that you remember hating about it was probably a really good idea. I did not do that, but I can say that after the rewatch, a lot of what I remember really disliking does still match up, but there is some things that I did pick up on it that maybe I didn't remember as much, maybe not remember liking as much because the movie just left such a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I will say I came out of this rewatch with way more positive things than I would have been able to name off a week ago.
I couldn't think of but one positive thing a week ago.
Like, basically, as I watched the movie, I put something in the good column or the bad column, and I will go ahead and say I had just as many good as bad. But yeah, with that being said, are you ready to dive into Terror or Air Halloween Ends?
I am ready. Did you say that you had more good than bad to say
No,
about the
I had
movie?
7 on each side.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, yeah, I'm ready.
Alright, let's do it.
Hello, boys and ghouls. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on with the show, talk about or submit your movie requests, or just say die, then I got good news for you. You can always find us at one of our social media accounts or our official website at Grindhouse.Horror.Pod.com, Facecrook at the Grindhouse Syndicate Horror Podcast, Instascam at Grindhouse.Horror.Pod, and many gore, which you can always find links for in the show notes as always. And you know what I always say, the morgue, the merrier. So please subscribe or follow for alerts on new episodes. Now, back to the show, kiddies. Frights, camera, action.
Alright, so Halloween Ends is a 2022 American slasher film directed by David Gordon Green, co-written by himself, Danny McBride, Paul Brad Logan, and Chris Bernier. It is the 13th installment in the Halloween franchise and the final film in the Blumhouse David Gordon Green trilogy, which began in 2018. The film stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Andy Matichek, Rowan Campbell, Will Patton, Kyle Richards, and James Jude Courtney as Michael Myers. Fun fact, Nick Castle provided voiceover work for Myers' breathing and makes an unrelated cameo appearance in the party scene. The plot follows the outcast Corey Cunningham, who falls in love with Laurie Strode's granddaughter, while a series of events, including crossing paths with Michael Myers, drives him to become a serial killer. Following the success of the first film, in July of 2019, the title was announced along with Halloween Kills. According to Green, he intended to give each film in the trilogy its own unique theme, with Halloween Ends being a love story. John Carpenter described the film as a departure from its predecessors in the trilogy. After being delayed due to the ongoing COVID pandemic, principal photography took place in Georgia between January and March of 2022, with reshoots taking place in mid-2022. Halloween Ends premiered at Beyond Fest in Los Angeles on October 11th of 2022 and was theatrically released in the US on October 14th by Universal Pictures. It also began streaming on the paid version of Peacock that same day. I'm pretty sure that is how we watched it because I remember saying, I am so glad I didn't drive all the way to the theater for that.
Yep. Yep, we definitely streamed it on
Peacock,
Peacock.
yep.
Yep, the day it came out.
Mhm.
I do remember that being very kinda interesting with such a big movie going to theaters, but hitting Peacock at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, normally there is a month delay in that when they do choose to stream it that soon. So I was really stoked that they did that because, man, the bad taste coming out of a
Yeah.
theater. Could you imagine?
So it had a budget of $33 million and a box office of somehow $105.4 million. So one, $33 million is a lot for a horror film when it comes to budget. The average budget for horror films currently is 13 million, and this movie had double that. But that has actually decreased a ton. From 2000 to 2014, the average horror movie had about a $36 million budget. But for some reason, in 2015, it was reevaluated and that had actually dropped to 13 million, which is kind of what it is still today. How the fuck this movie made 100 million and everybody hated it, I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, with these franchises and why companies are able to buy into the franchise and still have success is it's the franchise.
Yeah.
We are paying to see Michael Myers. It's the character. It's not the movie. And this is a thing that is big historically. Like if we look at some of the worst performing not performing, some of the worst Friday the 13th, they have good box offices because the movie prior to it was good, or it's running off the franchise name.
The
Like,
character alone, yeah.
yeah, that the people are going to see the character or they're going off of the previous movie. So, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that a Halloween in today's landscape made 100 million.
So originally, Danny McBride and David Gordon Green planned on pitching 3 Halloween films to be shot back to back. But they decided against doing that, opting to see how the first one did financially before writing any sequels. Which, in my opinion, if you're going to pitch a trilogy, have it all written and ready to go before you even start the first one. Because I think that's hurting these reboot trilogies the most is not having a fully fleshed out and smooth story for the fans to enjoy. We keep getting these movies, man, that are
Mhm.
fucking going everywhere.
I mean, we talked about this. I don't remember what episode we were on, but
Probably multiple.
just recently with them buying trilogies and not having a point A to B.
Yeah.
Like you need to if you're going to announce and purchase the rights for 3 movies or purchase the rights and announce that you're going to do 3 movies for it, you need to have a solid start and a solid finish and a good rough idea of how those movies are gonna go. But completely doing them individual and having just finishing one movie and going into the second one with different writers and no idea of direction of where everything's gonna go, the continuity is awful.
Well, I'm about to tell you something here in a minute about this movie that is going to explain a lot. So once Halloween 2018 killed it at the box office, both sequels went into pre-production with McBride and Green teaming up with other writers such as Scott Teems, Chris Benier, and Paul Brad Logan for each individual sequel. Now this led to both sequels being written at the same time by different writing teams, with Green and McBride mainly writing them, and then bringing these other writers in to kind of curate their crazy brains and give focus to the story. So, the way I had read it, and it sounded like to me, one, kills and ends were written by two different teams, and that is very obvious when watching them. And two, McBride and Green were just coming up with all sorts of these like stuff in these stories, and these other writers are having to come in after them and trim it down and trying to make a digestible story.
Hmm.
They basically were throwing everything they wanted into these stories. I mean, they had even admit, like, these other writers had to come in and kind of tone what we were trying to do down because we threw everything in there.
That's a big problem. That is a huge issue. That goes back to continuity. When you have so many different people writing a story too, rarely can I think of a instance where that came out good.
So officially, Green and McBride worked on both scripts, with Scott Teems cleaning up Halloween Kills and Logan and Benier cleaning up Halloween Ends. So just, man, writing two movies at the same time with two different writing teams seems kind of like a recipe for disaster to me. Another interesting thing I found was Green always intended to make the sequels very different from each other, with Kills being an action movie and Ends being a love story. Why?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that destroys the continuity. That does. It's like whenever you have a movie, 3 movies that feel completely different on purpose, that can work in rare instances like Ty West doing his what would you call that? X
it's the
trilogy,
X
Pearl
trilogy, yeah.
trilogy. But that worked really well because that was the gimmick of that.
Well,
That was they took place in different timelines.
it's also his unique story that he created, not a fucking established franchise and character.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like it works really good when that is kind of the gimmick of your trilogy. That's what Ty West. That was what sparked the idea of doing. Before he even wrote those movies, he had this idea of doing 3 different movies in 3 time periods
Mhm.
that all have an ode to different subgenres of horror. It worked really well with Fear Street as well.
Yeah.
But you can't in a Halloween movie, a Halloween has to have that Halloween feel. Like, everybody knows the good Halloweens, like, when you turn on that original and the John Carpenter score picks up and you get the awesome fucking jack-o'-lantern intro cards with the names and stuff while the score's going on. You get that vibe immediately.
So, another really important aspect to this story was Green's intention to show how society's treatment of trauma victims can affect the victims themselves down the road, which we see with Lori, who survives an attack by Myers and is treated with a little bit more sympathy, and then Corey, who is treated awful by Haddonfield residents because of an accidental death of a child while he was babysitting. Apparently, this whole idea was inspired by how bullied kids become school shooters. That was the whole mindset that Green had in the story he wanted to tell with Halloween Ends, which is why you kind of see what happens with Corey happen. So, filming officially began on January 19th of 2022 in Savannah, Georgia, and wrapped up on March 9th of 2022. But after Green had test audiences watch the final cut, the original final confrontation between Laurie and Michael Myers, as well as the ending sequence, were discarded and reshoots for new scenes were ordered. I do remember it getting leaked how much the test audiences disliked the movie. I don't know if you remember that. We did
Mm.
talk about it, and I was like, "Oh man, that
Yeah.
doesn't sound good."
Yeah, I do remember that
Yeah.
coming up.
So once filming wrapped, the project went into post-production for editing and sound, where Green continued to tweak the film to his satisfaction. According to cinematographer Michael Simmons, a practical version of the opening sequence, which shows jack-o'-lanterns emerging from within each other, was indeed created by production designer Richard Wright, but was later scrapped and replaced by a digital CGI version. I really want to see the practical version, man, because that is a cool intro.
Well, you know what? I will say this, for that being done in CGI, they did it really good, and they did it in a way that instead of making it like this perfect, clean, polished thing, they did it in to make it look like stop motion, which made it feel very 80s. And I did think that I didn't know that it was all CGI. I didn't know that until you just read that off. So the fact that I didn't pick up on it all being like shitty looking CGI, props to them at least for pulling that off. I don't know why they scrapped his practical version though.
So now we'll talk about the score a little bit. It was created by John Carpenter and his son Cody Carpenter and Daniel Davies, who had previously worked together on the first two films, and it was recorded entirely at Carpenter and Davies' home studios, which incorporates themes from the original 1978 film. Halloween Ends grossed a worldwide total of $105.4 million, making it the lowest grossing entry out of the Blumhouse Halloween trilogy. The 2018 made $259 million on a $10 million budget. Halloween Kills made $133 million on a $20 million budget, and this one only hit $105 with a $33 million budget. The budget just kept getting bigger, but the returns kept getting smaller.
We've seen that happen quite a few times in franchises.
Now, despite this huge success out of the gate, by its second weekend, it had an 88% drop, which was a near record decrease and was credited to its poor reception by critics and audiences. So now I'm going to read a couple reviews and the ratings from actual critics. Richard Roper of the Chicago Sun-Times gave the film 1.5 out of 4 stars, and he said, quote, "The so-called finale of the Michael Myers saga is just stabbing, metaphors, stabbing, soap opera, stabbing, marching band bullies, stabbing, and more stabbing." I will disagree with you, Richard.
Yeah.
There was not that much stabbing in this movie.
Yeah, I gotta say, I don't think he made it through the movie because there is far less stabbing than I think the other two movies, especially Halloween Kills. Like
Yeah.
that opening fucking firefighter scene is one of the coolest fucking scenes in the whole trilogy.
So Owen Gleiberman for Variety said, "The film is neither scary nor fun, and in my opinion, it is the most joyless, metaphorical, and convoluted entry of the franchise to date." Ben Travis of Empire Magazine said the film was lost in its own abyss and deemed it to be an unsatisfying closing chapter. Now, not everything was bad, though. Brad Truitt of USA Today praised the opening sequence, calling it an unnerving, unexpected scene that reveals in a sense of paternal dread right from the get-go. K. Austin Collins of Rolling Stone said, "Halloween Ends is the best out of Green's Halloween trilogy, noting its interesting, complex tangle of emotions and fears." So Brian of the USA Today just was like, the intro's good. And I don't know what K. Austin Collins is smoking. He says it's the best.
Yeah. Be willing to bet that guy's not a big fan of horror movies.
So the ratings, Rotten Tom gave it a 40%, IMDb gave it a 5 out of 10, Letterboxd a 2.1 out of 5. They got out of the threes. I do want to point out, when I wrote this, I still had the last episode of Terror and Error's ratings on here from the few weeks ago, like a month ago when we did it. And this movie got almost the exact same ratings across the board as Nightmare on Elm Street 2: Freddy's Revenge. I didn't have to change them very much.
Damn.
All right, so I'm going to do a quick run through of the plot of this movie before we jump into our good and bad. On Halloween night in 2019, Corey Cunningham is babysitting a young boy named Jeremy who pulls a prank on him, causing Corey to accidentally kick the boy over a railing where he falls and dies. Considering it was an accident, Corey isn't charged, but the event does make him an outcast by the people of Haddonfield. We then jump 4 years later, where we see that Haddonfield is still affected by the events of the first two films, especially considering Michael vanished after his killing spree and still hasn't been found. We also see that Laurie Strode has given up her backwoods, self sustaining lifestyle in order to take up residence in the burbs while writing a memoir and living with her now adult granddaughter, Allison. Corey, who everyone now hates, is working at his stepfather's junkyard when one day he gets injured in a confrontation with bullies, and Laurie takes him to the doctor and introduces him to Allison, who quickly develops a relationship. After a Halloween party, Corey runs into these bullies again, which results in him being beaten up and thrown over a bridge, which causes him to end up in the sewer where Michael Myers has been living for years. Michael starts to choke him to death, but ends up letting him go because he sees his pain, maybe, and passes his evil on to him. Think that's
Yeah.
what happens there?
Yeah, that part's definitely not clearly established as to what happened. Whether he was just too weak to kill him, or he senses like this. There's this weird flash, like like Michael Myers is
Yeah.
seeing his past,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if he's has sympathy for him, or what the fuck is going on here. It doesn't make any sense, but also why he doesn't just kill him when he's knocked out.
So after that, he runs into this homeless dude, which results in a scuffle leading to Corey stabbing the man to death and fleeing. Once things get a little more serious between him and Allison, he ends up leading her asshole ex-boyfriend to the sewers to be killed by Michael. Now that Corey has begun to enjoy his rise as the town's bad guy, he ends up targeting the doctor and nurse that screwed over Allison on a promotion because they were sleeping together. This leads to Corey killing the doctor and Michael joining him to kill the nurse. Allison, who still doesn't know what Corey is turning into, makes plans for the two of them to leave Haddonfield for good, but her grandmother Laurie quickly realizes that Corey has been infected with Michael's evil, which of course causes a lot of friction between Laurie and Corey. Laurie then goes to Corey offering to help him if he stays away from Allison, but he flips out and tells her if he can't have her, no one will. This pushes Corey over the edge, leading him to going to the sewers, beating Michael's ass and stealing his mask, which he uses to go on a killing spree. He ends up killing the bullies from earlier, his own mother, a radio DJ, and the DJ's assistant. He eventually heads to the Strode house where Laurie ambushes him faking a suicide, but Corey stabs himself in the neck in order to frame her for his murder because he knows Allison is on the way home and will turn on her grandmother for killing her boyfriend, which does kind of work because Allison does get pissed and take off out of the house. After that, a now pissed off Michael arrives at the Strode house, snapping Corey's neck, getting his mask back, and attacking Laurie, which leads to a brutal fight in the kitchen where she pins him down, slits his throat, but that is not enough to stop him as he then suddenly grabs Laurie by the neck and begins choking her to death. Thankfully, though, Allison gets a call from Deputy Frank Hawkins, who informs her about Laurie's report of a suicide, causing Allison to head back to her grandmother's house just in time to help Laurie finally kill Michael for good. After Michael's death, Laurie and Allison take his body to the junkyard by police escort, which draws most of the residents of Haddonfield who are eager to watch Michael finally be destroyed forever. They then throw him in an industrial shredder, completely destroying his body and finally putting an end to his reign of terror. After all that, we then see Allison and Laurie reconcile, with Allison eventually leaving Haddonfield, while Laurie finishes her memoir and rediscovers her romance with Deputy Frank Hawkins. The last shot of the film then shows that Laurie kept Michael's mask. That is Halloween ends.
Yeah, you would think the townspeople wouldn't be so quick to parade Michael to the junkyard and literally watch his body get smashed up after in Halloween Kills, they murdered that
They
innocent.
murdered the wrong guy.
Yeah, they murdered that innocent guy at the hospital.
Yep.
Essentially, like, pushed him out the window to his own death. you would think there'd be some guilt there, or there would be some people that's like, "Okay, hold on, we don't know what Michael Myers looks like. Let's not make that mistake again." He is already dead, but it would look really bad if we all cheered on him getting smashed up in a trash cutter.
At least, like, when Lori is, like, trying to roll him in there and they're all standing down there and somebody just yells, "Are you sure it's him?"
What's his blood type?
Alright, so are you ready to talk about the bad?
Probably
Let's start
think
out with the bad so we can at least end on the good.
we don't get, Donald Pleasant shows up, and he's like, "I need a dentist in 5. Meet me at the junkyard before we crush the body
He's like,
and his dental records
he
ASAP."
he finally died from them 6 shots that I hit him with in 1978. He just bleeds very slowly. Alright, so I'll kick it off with my first issue here is we got, and I made sure I checked the time, we got no Michael until 40 minutes into the movie, and we didn't get the first kill until 55 minutes into this movie. Why did they think people were gonna like that?
Yeah, so I didn't check the kill. 41 minutes actually on him being shown. It's 40 minutes and like 54 seconds. So I rounded that up to 41 minutes. We both checked that.
Mhm.
Yeah. You have a Halloween movie where we don't even see Michael Myers for 41 minutes.
That's almost halfway through the movie.
Yes.
The movie is what, like an hour and 50 minutes, I think?
I mean, even like in a Jason Goes to Hell scenario, which is very similar complaints, like Jason's not in the movie, although he's at least, jumping
He's
bodies.
kinda
But
in it,
we
yeah.
we at least get a beginning, like, intro of actual Jason in
Yeah.
the movie. We don't get anything with Michael, like, we don't get they could have put after Halloween Kills, like, the events that transpired right after that, maybe in the year or 2 after that, Michael killing the last people he had killed before he hit the sewers or something. The fact that we don't even see him until 41 minutes is insane. We don't get a kill until, what'd you say, 54
55
min
minutes, which
50
is her cop ex-boyfriend or whatever,
yeah,
which seems way older than her,
and
but
and that kill alone is really sad because, yeah, I mean, he can barely stand up.
oh, yeah, it's not.
It's a ri look, we come to see these movies for the killer. You go to a Friday the 13th to see Jason Voorhees. That is what puts you at the movie theater. It's what makes you stand in line at the box office and buy a ticket, or nowadays to get on an app hours before to make sure you get good seats. If we're going to a Nightmare on Elm Street back in the day, we were there to see Freddy Krueger. We go to see a Halloween for Michael Myers, and to not see him for that long in the movie is just ridiculous.
Yeah, terrible, terrible idea.
And then also, these movies, what we love about these characters is their strength and how brutal and strong they are and how unstoppable they are. So to finally get a kill, but that first kill is so, like, just pathetic that he literally can barely kill this guy and he's being held down by somebody else is just the opposite of the characters that we go to see.
Yeah. Yeah, I was dumbfounded by that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. So my first bad thing, obviously, I completely agree with you there on not seeing Michael. I also hate the idea of the transferring of evil. They flirted with this idea in other franchises, including this one. They flirted with the idea with Jason Goes to Hell, with Jason transferring through the bodies. At the end of Friday the 13th, Part 5, the very end, they flirt with Tommy Jarvis having the mask on. Like, he's gonna
Yeah,
continue to
yeah.
be the Jason. They do it in Halloween at the end of Part 4 with
Yep.
Danielle Harris playing a young Jamie, which is Laurie Strode's daughter. Her kinda, like, she's gonna take the reins on of being Michael Myers, and luckily in all these movies, the directors and writers of the next movie ignored those endings. I think the only time we've actually, like, in the main franchises, seen it done in a whole movie was Jason Goes to Hell, and everybody hates that movie
For that reason. Yeah.
for that very reason. And then it also really, really, leads into the first thing we talked about, which is the main cause of why we don't see Michael Myers that much in this movie. Most of the killing that's done, and there's not a lot of killing done in this movie, is not even actually done by Michael Myers, which is who we come to see. So the whole transferring of evil, you're putting the main killer as somebody who's not the person that everybody got excited to see.
Yeah. One of the things I really hate about this transferring of evil thing is it kind of creates this psychic connection as well, which we do see later on, like when they're together killing the doctor and the nurse, and Michael's strangling the nurse, and Corey's like stuck outside, and he has to take his hand wrap off because he can like feel her dying through his hand too.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then, like, that's the whole reason that Michael comes to Laurie's house in the end is because he can, like, psychically feel that Corey's there. And then I guess also him and Laurie have a psychic connection as well because she immediately can tell when Corey is now possessed by Michael's evil.
Yeah.
She just feels it. And I'm
It's
like,
like the 4.
where did all this come from?
Yeah. It was bad when they did it with, and I won't say as bad, but in Part 4 with Jamie, young Danielle Harris, they did the same thing where her and Michael kinda have this, like, psychic connection. I mentioned it with Tommy Jarvis at the end of Part 5, although that's not actual Jason. The real Jason is, like, in Tommy Jarvis's dreams and in his head, and it's like he's becoming Jason by the end of the movie, and it's just a really weird thing, and it never goes well.
Yeah, yeah, at least in 4, though, it made a little more sense because they were related back
Yeah,
then.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that's a little bit better than just grabbing a stranger and like, "Oh, here, take it." Like, you just grab him hard enough and shake him, and then he's evil. He's got some mere evil now. I don't know.
I mean, it's like Michael Myers needs to kill to get the strength back. Like, he's ran out of juice and he needs to kill. Obviously, once he kills, like, he gets stronger. And, maybe he needed somebody that is really fucked up and on like somebody who's been bullied that is capable of doing bringing him people to kill so he can get back on his feet and get that power back. So I get that aspect of it, but why wouldn't he have just before that dude even woke up, like murdered him to get that power back?
Well, he didn't have an issue losing his power when he was locked in Smith Grove until the 2018 movie.
Yeah.
He was perfectly able to kill multiple times just getting out of, and he had been in there since 1978.
Mhm. Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
doesn't really match up with the story they had already started telling.
Yeah,
So,
he gets that much power too off of killing that first guy, the cop that he brings back there and holds down, and you literally see him like stand up, and he's close to back to normal at that point. Had he just killed Corey when he first dragged him in there, and if he would have got that much strength off of it, He coulda walked right outside and killed the homeless guy who's been hanging out outside, like,
Yeah.
he was I mean, it makes no sense.
Well, since we're on the subject of the evil thing, I liked the idea of showing a story that explains how someone good can turn to evil, but it kind of defeats the purpose when Corey only turns evil because Michael like passes him this evil, right? Because like I said, Green really wanted to tell a story similar to like, how good kid in school gets bullied and tormented enough and becomes like a school shooter, right? But the reality is somebody doesn't come up to a kid that's being bullied and pass him evil, and I feel like it kind of this passing of the evil kind of defeats the purpose of that. And Rob Zombie got so much shit for showing Michael's backstory to try and explain why Michael is the way he is. Then David Gordon Green comes along and tries to do something very similar, but instead of using the troubled childhood for Michael's killing, he uses magic evil that could be like passed on like a virus or some shit. And he doesn't get ridiculed for it like Zombie did.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the past and the evil period. I will say that I guess in the Halloween novel, they go into a little bit of a backstory about the Myers family back in like the 1600s. One of the Myers like kind of goes crazy and kills somebody, and then back in like the I think it was like 30s or something, it happens again, and it's almost hinting at like this evil that comes upon this family, and a male in the family gets this evil. It's obviously it could be 200 years in between, and it's like Michael, it's inherently just evil, but the passing it on to other people completely takes that out. Like, takes out Michael has this just pure evil where he's in a lot of the movies, what he grows in the original storyline is he's not even a man. Like, at some point, the evil takes him over where he's no longer a man, he is just pure evil. But to pass that on to somebody makes no sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. My next thing is, for me at least, starting at Laurie's fake suicide. So boom, we're at this point in the movie. The ending is very muddy. I got the vibe that they didn't really know how to end it. They just had some ideas that they really wanted to have in there, and they just kind of mashed all those ideas together. Like, one, why does she pretend to kill herself? Like, she could pretend to go to bed or pretend to get in the shower in order to ambush Corey, right? Didn't have to be this whole suicide thing. Two, also the thing with like Corey stabbing himself in the neck to make Allison get mad at Lori. That doesn't really need to be in there. Especially considering Allison like comes fucking right back, which was like the next thing. Allison leaving and then like 5 minutes later getting a call and immediately rushing back to the house to save Lori. It just seems like they just had multiple different directions that they thought about taking this ending and just could not settle on a good ending. And then when I did my production research, finding out that they ended up scrapping the original ending and doing a reshoots. And then you recently did a story on our Patreon show that talked about all the other different endings that they were going to do with like Lori ends up with Michael's evil and has to hide out forever. Did you say another one like did Lori like kill herself in one of the endings? I
Um,
remember there's like 3 different
I don't
ones.
think she killed herself, but yeah, there was a couple wild ones.
Well, I don't know if you feel the same way, but to me, the ending is very muddy and there's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't need to be in there, doesn't really add anything. Like, the biggest issue is the Corey stabbing himself, so Allison thinks her grandma did it, and then she gets mad and she leaves, but then she comes right back. Like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah, so I did touch on that as one of the things I hated. her coming back doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but what really bothers me is after, like, the whole showdown thing, she literally makes the comment, she says, "I know Corey killed all of those people."
Well, it didn't.
So now she just found out that she now knows for a fact that the real Michael Myers was around again, and he was going to kill her grandmother. How all of a sudden do you know that it was Corey who went and killed all these people?
That's what I'm
Like
saying. This is
what
so muddy.
yeah, what happened in the story that makes any sense that she would go from being convinced, and he set it up real well that she was gonna try to kill him. And, it sounded really preposterous to Alice. She's like, "What do you mean she's trying to kill you?" And then she walks in on him literally had being stabbed in the throat, and Laurie Strode's holding the knife. So she obviously is like, "Okay, well, he was right." Like, literally, she just fucking killed him, stabbed him in the throat. What could have possibly 180 you, like, what did she learn that made her so fucking convinced that Corey killed all these people? Like, it makes no sense.
Well, she sees, like, the tower on fire, but that's nowhere near enough evidence to point to him murdering all these people. Like, she doesn't even know the people at the radio station are dead. I don't know. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's just like they needed Allison to get mad at Lori for just long enough for Michael to show up and them to start the fight or to have the showdown without Allison there. And it just needed her to come back. And I'm just like, man, just have her just not show up yet. Like,
Yeah, the only thing that makes sense for her as far as the people who he did kill is like the chick, the nurse that she was working with and her boss that the nurse was fucking for the promotion. And if she sat and thought about that and was like, "Yeah, well, I had complained to Corey about how I got fucked over at work, and what's the chances Michael Myers would have, showed up and killed these random people?" So yeah, that was probably Corey. But in reality, actually, Michael Myers did the killing in that.
yeah. Yeah,
So
it's what I'm saying, man. It's just too muddy. Like, they could have just ended it. The main thing they needed was Lori and Michael to fight. And instead of just like smoothly coming to that scene, it's like they bent everything around what the other stuff they wanted to put in there. And it just is too complicated, too muddy, doesn't make sense. It's yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know why, and even in editing, when they were editing, they were like, "Man, this has got too much stuff crammed in it. Let's cut some stuff out." But, I guess they thought that this was gonna work.
yeah, so since we're on the subject of the muddiness at the end of the movie, I'm just gonna jump straight into how much that final showdown fucking sucked.
Yeah, it
Like,
was
it
not.
was so fucking weak. I already talked about like the strength of these characters, and it's why we love to go to these franchises, movies, and see our favorite killers like literally do like just crazy brutal killing and just crazy strength that a normal person wouldn't have. And Michael Myers, prior to this, like, he kills that nurse chick, which is, in my opinion, probably the coolest kill of the movie because it's actually Michael, and he pins her to the wall with the knife, which is an ode to
To
some
Bob, yeah.
earlier
Mhm.
Halloween kills. Yeah, so he's that strong, but he gets his ass whooped by Lori. Like, outside of the first 10 seconds of the fight, because he gets her good, like, for the first 10 seconds, she dominates him after that. Like, she literally kicks his fucking ass. And then when she's going to finish him off after she has slit his throat, he literally rips his hand out of this knife and starts choking her. And I'm like, okay, this is awful as far as the final fight, but if he chokes her to death and they both die at the same time, I'm okay with that. Like, I would at least be okay with that ending if Laurie Strode died in the final showdown and her and Michael Myers literally killed each other and died in this final showdown. It wouldn't have been my favorite movie. It wouldn't have changed my opinion drastically, but as far as the ending would have been much, much better. But the fact that he is like, breaks through and he's choking her and the fucking score starts kicking in. They start showing all these flashbacks of them two fighting, and that gets interrupted with Allison coming back in, which we've already discussed makes no sense of why she came back in. And she literally runs up and snaps his fucking arm in half. Like, she gets like some superhuman strength and literally breaks his arm backwards at the elbow. And then they slit his wrist and he bleeds to death. And if that wasn't bad enough, then they parade his body through town and put him in a fucking grinder.
I
And showing his face during that too. Or removing his mask
Yeah.
during that last scene. Huge mistake.
I personally thought the showdown in 2018 Halloween was drastically better.
Way better.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, them, like, even the whole, like, cringy, the whole town coming together to get their licks in on him was better than this whole ending.
My last thing is, and we've already touched on it a lot, so I'll keep it short. How pitiful and disappointing Michael is in this whole entire movie. I would have rather them killed Michael off in the beginning and his evil, like, pass to Corey, and Corey becomes the new Michael than this version we got.
Yeah.
Like, it was so disappointing to see Michael Myers as, like, a disabled serial killer. That's what it was. Like,
Literally on
it was like, it's like
Just
have
waiting for
Ghostface in a wheelchair and fucking Texas Chainsaw, like Leatherface has got one of those old people walkers, and like it was just, I would rather them killed him off and had a new person become, the Shape, evil, than what we got here.
Yeah, I mean, I hate the idea of the evil passing off to another person, but I gotta say that it probably would have been better than the weak ass version of Michael that we get in most of this movie. Like, Michael is only really good during that one scene, which is where they go to kill the doctor and the nurse. That is one of my biggest complaints by far, is just how weak Michael Myers was when he gets his mask taken. I remember the first time we watched this movie. When that guy runs up in there and, like, whoops his ass and takes the mask from him, I was just done. I was like, "You gotta be kidding me."
Yeah, I remember we
Michael
started yelling at the
Myers
TV.
literally just got his fucking mask stolen from him
Yep.
by not even, like, some, like, big badass motherfucker, like a Tyler Mane, like, running up in there and, like, whooping his ass. Just like a goofy, bullied 20-something-year-old guy runs up in there and is like, "Hey, I gotta have this mask," which also made no sense. I'm like, "What do you mean he's not anything without his mask?" Like, the mask isn't what gives him strength. Like, the at no point in any of these movies does it reference the mask is what gives him the strength. Like, it's the person that's evil. He was evil without the mask, like, when he was locked up for all those years. Yeah, just, the mask thing didn't make sense. My final bad is, Jamie Lee Curtis. You know I'm gonna put her in here. Her as old Laurie Strode is so fucking cringy throughout this whole trilogy. I actually thought how she is in the beginning of this movie was so much better than the 2018 version of her, which is like this badass survivalist. But she slowly reverts back into that during this movie, and it takes me back into that cringe that I felt whenever I first seen 2018 version of Laurie Strode. When Corey wakes up in the house and that the house that he killed that kid in, he goes and crashes out in that abandoned house, and he wakes up and Laurie is, like, kicked back in the chair, like, tapping the chair on the ground like a detective that's, like, figured somebody out, just waiting for him to wake up. It's just so cringy, and then her whooping Michael's ass is just so cringy. And I don't know how much, like, Jamie Lee Curtis coming back to this, like, how many demands she had or, if her demand was she's gonna kill Michael off finally. I know that
That was yeah,
that was a demand for,
for
the
H2O.
H2O. Um, that was my first thought when I seen the end of this was the demand she had for H2O. Like, did she demand she would come back if she gets to finally, like, whoop his ass and kill him? But either way, like, I hate how she reverts back into it in this movie.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about some good stuff. There is some good stuff about this movie. First off, like I said, I really like the intro with the season of the witch lettering and then the pumpkins like coming out of each other. Intro's great. When I first seen that, because I had actually forgot about that. When I first seen that on this rewatch, I was like, damn, that's a damn good intro, and that completely disappeared from my memory.
Yeah, the movie was so bad, I completely forgot about the excitement that I felt when I seen this for the first time. It's a classic Halloween intro, the jack-o'-lanterns growing inside of each other and then breaking the next one open was like a cool thing that we had never seen. They always have some like gimmick that we haven't seen, whether it's the skull coming out or whatever it is. And I want to point out how they did it in stop motion. Now, I guess you told me they did it and
Yeah,
they went
CGI.
back and CGI'd it, but they CGI'd it not to be smooth, but to look like stop motion, which gave it an 80s feel. The blue lettering, the fucking best score in I would say cinematic history kicking in. It all comes together. It's great.
I also really liked how they showed the aftermath of like Michael's 2018 killing spree and how the grief and blame took over the town of Haddonfield. I do see some realism in there because every like big devastating event that happens, we always see people blaming others or rumors passed around, conspiracies get started about, like the real reason an event happened. And as humans, we have a tendency to lash out at others when we are sad and angry. This movie does a very good job showing that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I thought the aftermath of Haddonfield and how there was like a massive like spike in crime, like violent crime that happened after this event. It was really interesting to see how the return of Michael Myers and him killing all the people that he killed and like just the very bad effect that it had on this community where all this violent crime was now happening and every time something would happen somebody kind of tied it back to being Michael Myers' fault
Well,
or Laurie Strode's fault.
it created a paranoia too because there's a very quick little scene where like there's a couple like murders and the cops are immediately like, "Do you think it's Michael?"
Even better example of that is the very first kill. The whole reason Corey gets in the situation that he gets into with accidentally killing this kid is him being paranoid over Michael Myers.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Didn't even think about that. They also did a really good job of portraying Allison's feelings towards the events of the first 2 movies. I assume you're probably the same way, but I hate when movies do the whole, like, happily ever after thing, because the reality is people that survive terrible events do struggle with anger and stuff for years afterwards. A great example is, like, combat veterans or people have survived sexual assault or violent home invasions. You don't years later, you're not just fine and, everything's happily ever after. You have to put in a lot of work or you're gonna be like this.
Yeah, I think, that is the shining star of Rob Zombie's Halloween too. A lot of that movie I hate. There's a lot of decisions in the end of that movie I can't stand, but I loved that they showed the PTSD of that version of Laurie Strode
Yeah,
after the events, like, what it did to her. Yeah, I love when it's a lot more realistic and they actually show what severe trauma does to people over time. Like, you're not just gonna be happy-go-lucky, act like it never happened after an event like that.
yeah,
Especially with her, her mom is murdered.
and her dad.
Her
That
mom is actually murdered saving her.
Yeah, her dad dies in the first one, and her mom dies in the second one, but,
Yeah, and then her being an adult and dealing with that trauma and living with her grandma is also a very realistic thing.
yeah,
Like, she's not off on her own, just killing it at life. She's gotta have some help.
gotta have a crutch, man.
Yeah. One of the things I loved about this movie, well, is the look of Michael Myers.
Agree.
Christopher Nelson in 2018 did a amazing job at recreating the mask. It is the best mask since the original.
I agree.
Obviously you can't get better than the original because it is, that's what you're trying to recreate. But I think that it is a cooler looking mask than what the original looked like. But yeah, out of all of the movies, this is 2018 Christopher Nelson. That sculpt he did for that mask was the best that we've gotten since the original, and he did a amazing job with the progress of the aging of the mask,
I agree, yeah.
as it went throughout the trilogy, the damage it takes, the fire, and then by the end of this one, the mold that is growing on the side of the mask from him living in the sewers for all these years. Definitely think that despite this movie being awful, this is probably one of the coolest looking Michael Myers that we got. And then I'll top that off with saying James Jude Courtney, once Michael Myers was, got his power back and wasn't a 97-year-old man dying in a sewer, once he got the power and became like normal Michael again, which is a very, very small amount of this movie. But once he did, James Jude Courtney did a great job portraying the character, and I thought he has throughout the whole trilogy.
My final thing is gonna be the kills. I thought there was some, okay kills, but we did get some good ones. Like, I thought that the kid falling and hitting the floor was awesome. That was very well done. The DJ who gets his fucking tongue cut off,
Yeah.
that was good. The doctor getting stabbed over and over again with that clear plastic bag over his head, and then when Michael, like, recreates his Bob kill from the first movie with the hot nurse lady, that's awesome, but the best kind of effect I thought by far was Michael being, like, thrown into the shredder. That looked so good.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. You just covered pretty much something from every kill of the movie. Not a whole lot of kills in this one. But I thought the doctor with the plastic bag, like, he's literally getting shanked inside of this plastic bag.
Well, I love how you can see Corey back there, but you can't see it, but you like she's like looking around outside and you just see somebody back there just stabbing and stabbing and stabbing. And then she flips the light on, he's still fucking going.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, I thought that was awesome. Michael getting thrown in the shredder thing, they used, like, some type of practical dummy for that. It looked great. Like, I thought it looked really good. I did love the DJ's tongue
Oh yeah.
skipping over the record player.
Just a shot of them cutting it off was good too.
Yeah, yeah, that looked really good. My favorite kill of the movie, not for the practical effects, but just overall, was the nurse being pinned to the wall just because of the nod to the original Halloween, but also it showed the strength, like, Michael Myers was finally back, although it was the very end of the movie, and he goes on to get beat up by an old woman still. Him pinning her up to that fucking wall and then pinning her body with the butcher knife, fucking fantastic.
Yeah. Good kills. Yeah, not a lot of kills, but we did get some good ones. Well, with that being said, it is time for the final verdict. And you're up first. Is this a terror or an error?
Oh, by far an error. It did not change my opinion at all. The things that I really remember hating about this movie, which was like Michael Myers barely being in it. It takes forever before we even see him. He's super fucking weak. He gets beat up and gets his mask taken from him. All of that I fucking hated. I had forgot about him, like, fucking tag team world champion with Corey.
Mm-hmm.
That whole kill thing, I thought that was fucking stupid. The transfer of evil stuff, hated it. The movie was such an error to me that the few things that I did really like that they nailed in this movie, I'd completely forgot about.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I totally went into this with a clean slate, and I actually really wanted to be wrong in this movie to be better than I remember. I personally think they were trying to tell a story with very smart undertones baked in. With this movie in particular, they were trying to show how a good person can turn to the dark side and become evil, which is a good story. I mean, that's exactly what Breaking Bad did.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, like, as a movie, like, the way it was shot, the way they build it up, like, that part of the story, all that's a good movie. The problem is that this is a Halloween movie.
Yeah, this is already an established franchise with the popular character, and the audience is expecting a Halloween slasher movie, not a commentary on how grief and sadness like morphs into anger and hate. This might have worked a lot better if David Gordon Green created his kind of own character and trilogy, but this is fucking Halloween and it fell flat. I personally think David Gordon Green is a great director, but he colored a little bit too much out of the lines with this one, and he paid the price, unfortunately. When dealing with classic horror villains, don't try to put a square block into a circle shaped hole. So for me, this one is an error.
I think the two biggest things that hurt this movie before it was even made was what we talked about earlier with them not having a direction for all three movies
Yep.
together. Them being individually written really fucked up the continuity of the way the 2018 and Kills feels compared to this is it's very obvious that they didn't quite know what direction to go into after Halloween Kills. So I think that hurt it a lot, and then I think also too many cooks in the kitchen. Man, when you have 2 people writing a story, and then you have a whole team of writers also dedicated to going in and changing things about the story, And that's not even including all the big time players and producers at Blumhouse that was sitting at the table that probably cut certain things in and cut certain things out. And whenever you let one person have that control and that creative freedom, you end up having such a better movie. But when you put too many cooks in the kitchen, you really lose any type of a vision of where this movie is going. And I think that's unfortunately one of the things that killed this movie before production even began.
Well, there's that, and then they also tried to be too smart because Kills has an undertone of what happens when a mob of people get scared. It doesn't end well. That is the whole reason that that whole
Yeah, the
guy gets killed that's not Michael. This one, they decided to try to stuff in the whole when an actual good person gets treated like shit and becomes a bad person. And them just stuffing a whole nother plot in the middle of a Halloween movie didn't work out.
also the love story thing too. That's not something that we need in a
No.
Halloween movie. It's not something that's synonymous with the franchise. You don't get a lot of love stories being a major plot point.
Well, that is our thoughts on Halloween Ends. We hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you think about this film. Are you a fan of this one or do you think it is a train wreck? And like always, let us know what movie you want to hear on Terror or Error next. I'm really hoping that the next movie turns out it's great. So once again, we thank you guys for listening. Please give us a follow or like if you enjoy the show. Check out the website, check out the socials. Tell a friend, a family member, or the guy in town everyone hates about the show. And we hope to see you next time.